everyone, it's Niki Shelton and we are keeping it real. And we are going to be talking today about some really cool stuff. How long does it take to buy a house? And welcome, Kerri. How are you doing today?
Woo, busy.
I know, right?
Graduation season.
It's graduation season. It's people out shopping for houses. It's just been really, really busy. And I've been kind of getting back into it. So a lot of spring cleaning and all that fun stuff around my house. So definitely keeping busy and keeping moving, which is a good thing, right?
Most definitely. Yes. We're remodeling our room right now. So it's kind of taking some time.
Yeah, it does. I'm kind of doing that too in a weird way. So we're going to talk today about timelines and when you buy a house, how long things can take or maybe not take. And we're going to kind of just hit the basics of it, I guess. Don't you think, Kerri? Isn't that kind of what we're process kind of? Yeah. So we're just going to dive right in because you know what? It's beautiful outside today. And I don't know about you, but I've got a lot of yard work to do. And if you hear that noise, I apologize. It's some of my landscapers who's doing that. So I got to go out and do some of my own, but I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. Let's get moving. So, you know, the first thing when people decide, they're kind of like, you know, they look over their finances and say, you know what, it's time to buy a house. So a lot of times what they'll do is they start online and they're just looking, you know, I mean, they're just kind of checking out Zillow and checking out whatever, some other sites and stuff like that. And they'll spend a lot of time online looking at homes. And usually it's probably 3 to 6 months. I would say probably it's kind of an average for most people. And then they decide, you know what, let's get serious. Let's go make this happen and do this. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. That just took my dog.
Take it over. I'll see if I can pause myself. Anyway, yes, that's my wonderful dog. So anyway, so then they decide after that to find a real estate professional. And, you know, and it depends on what you're going to do. Sometimes you are, I'm going to see if I can feed her and give her a treat. Maybe she'll be cool. I'll keep her mouth busy. Anyway, I'm going to, or, you know, and then it depends on what they're going to do. Sometimes they'll talk to, you know, their friends and family. Sometimes they'll choose, you know, put it online and ask for a couple choices and, you know, just kind of see who's recommended. And then usually maybe they'll interview them. Maybe they're just given a name. So it can really depend on how long that process takes. I mean, it just kind of depends on who the person is that's looking for the person. Sometimes it can take a day and sometimes it can take a couple of weeks or a week maybe. So that's kind of when they get started. And then obviously the next thing the real estate person's going to do is say, hey, let's go and talk to a lender because we need to make sure you're pre-approved. Kerri, why don't you take it from here?
Definitely. Getting pre-approved is a huge part of it. Basically, to make sure you can be pre-approved, and you also want to make sure you know how much you're pre-approved for. So when you're out looking at homes, you know what your budget is. So we want to make sure that we're collecting all your documents. You fill out a loan application. Once I have your loan application and the documents that I need, it doesn't take very long to put that pre-approval together. I work as fast as you do. So the faster you upload those documents, the faster I'm able to get that pre-approval out to you. But generally, I can get it out in a couple of hours.
Right. So, I mean, if you know your information, usually the pre-approval, I mean, I know that a lot of my clients, I mean, Kerri's been able to approve very quickly. So it's been very nice. And it also kind of depends on how in depth of that pre-approval you want to get. I mean, if the if the market's very competitive, you might want to, you know, do the whole underwriting thing. And that might take a little bit longer, but it just kind of depends on how quickly you're trying to move and if you have an offer or whatever, right?
Right. And what you're talking about is having a fully underwritten approval when you go out shopping for a house. It does make for a much stronger offer, very comparable to a cash offer. And that way, when you go under contract, all you're really going to have to order is an appraisal and the title report and get your homeowner's insurance. And so it can close pretty quickly. About 7 to 10 days is generally the timeline for those conditional approvals.
So it just kind of depends on, like I said, the market, and then, you know, how quickly or how, you know, how much time you want to take to make sure that you're set up for that. And underwriting, having it underwritten, like I said, it's a lot stronger of an offer. So sometimes if you've got the time, that makes the most sense. then you're going to like go tour some homes. And this is the fun part. I mean, this is the part where you gotta, kind of see what's out there, and you kind of already been looking, you kind of have an idea what you're looking for. So it's just kind of making sure, just finding the right one. And most people, I have a 10 after that. Most people look at about 10 homes. And and each home you probably spend a half hour to an hour looking at the home. And then, obviously you have driving time and stuff like that. So I don't know, 10 times an hour, it's like 10 hours plus driving time. I mean, it gets kind of busy.
It's a process. It's definitely a process. And you want to look through the homes because you want to make sure that it's what you like. You want to make sure that there's nothing major that needs to be fixed in the home. So take your time, look through them, and go over things with a fine-tooth comb, because this is a large purchase. And it's not like you could just back out of it the next day. It takes time to go through everything. So
right. So then you find the home, right? You find the one you want to make the offer on. And this is where it gets really fun. So then you submit your offer, and then you got to wait.
Exactly. The waiting game.
So, sometimes an offer gets accepted. It can be accepted that day. Sometimes, you might have a client who's out of the country. Sometimes, there's multiple offers and they want to make sure that all the offers have time to get, highest and best in. So they might extend it a couple of days. It just kind of depends. But typically, it's a day or two, maybe 3 process. And then you find out, yes, you get it, or no, you don't. And if no, then you have to go start all over the process again, right?
Exactly.
So then you become under contract. And so this is where it kind of gets where you really get to learn a lot about the home you're going to be purchasing. And so usually the first thing you're going to be doing is you're going to be you have to put your earnest money in, and then the next thing would usually be a home inspection. And yes, you can waive home inspections, but I would never suggest doing that. No matter, even if the seller had done a home inspection, I would still do your own home inspection. But home inspections, again, they can take a while. I mean, typically you have, I don't know, a couple days to 10 days to get your home inspector in and to do the walk through the property. And sometimes you go back and say, hey, seller, can you fix this for me? And they say yes, and that's a couple more days, and then you're done. So maybe 15 days. Other times, you might have to bring in another professional. Like you might have the roof might have some issues. Let's bring in a roofer. And so that could extend it. So somewhere probably between, honestly, if you're talking the whole process, between 10 and 20 days, sometimes it could even extend a little bit longer, but at least 10 to 20 days would be what I would think for most home inspections. And that's kind of what you're doing up until the next step, which is the appraisal. Kerri, why don't you take this one away?
Once you get your offer accepted, that's when me and my team go to work. And so you're going to be getting documents from every which direction. Title and escrow is going to send you paperwork. You'll sign your contract, and then I'm going to send you a bunch of paperwork too. So once we get you your disclosures sent out, and we know the home inspection is good, and if you have any repairs, the sellers have agreed to it, then we will order the appraisal. We want to make sure that we are waiting to order it until we know that you're completely moving forward, because with an appraisal, once it's completed, if you back away from the home, you still have to pay for it. So we don't want to order something and have you pay for something that you're just going to walk away from. So
absolutely. And they're not cheap. I mean, they're at least about $1,800, $1,200 sometimes even. So
yeah, and it depends on what you need. It runs about $970 because it's $850 for the appraisal, and then they have their administrators. It's another $120. And if you have a rental property or anything like that you're purchasing, they're going to have to order a rent schedule. So yes, there are things that can get added that will increase the price of that appraisal.
All right, and then you finally get through that process, and providing that the appraisal appraise, because sometimes it doesn't, and then you have to add on a little bit more time to that. And that the appraisals usually take about 2 weeks to get back typically. But
it really depends. Right now we're looking at maybe 7 to 10 days.
Okay. And then after that, and then hopefully you have it's at values, or it's under values or overvalue, whichever that goes.
Over yeah.
So hopefully, you've got a good deal and you're paying what you should. But if for some reason that comes back and you're overpaying for it, then you might have to go and get a reconsideration, or you might have to look up comps, and that can also extend that back a little bit. right?
Yes. Yes. And if you do get an appraisal that comes in low, like Niki is saying, you can contest that. Your agent can provide comparable properties that we then submit to the appraiser and let them know, look, these properties, this is where we got our value from. So can you reconsider what you appraised the home at? Because you never want to start out with a negative equity. And just remember, if you do have a gap in what the home is worth and what it appraises for, we can never finance for, whatever is over the asking price. You would have to come in with that difference in cash if you wanted to move forward.
Or have the seller come down. Yep.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. And then finally, let's say you get through that process. There's a lot of processes here, if you're noticing. You go through that process, and then you have title and escrow who come in, and the lenders are coming in, and everybody's making sure all the final numbers are right. You're getting your estimated statements to make sure all the numbers are driving and everything is as set up for the contract and everything makes sense. And then you get a close, right?
Yes.
You record it with the county and you get a close, and this is the big thing. So, start to finish. I mean, let's not count the online search because that's not, that's what the buyer does kind of on their own. But once you start that process, it can actually take months. Closing, and we're going to give it two different scenarios here because I know Kerri's going to say, I don't close in months. I'll let her explain that in just a minute. And she's right. And she's 100% right. She does not close in months. But the whole process, you could be looking for a home. If seriously, if you're thinking about, 15 hours, let's say a half-hour driving time, and you're between the places and stuff like that, you could be a couple weeks just doing that. And then if you have to repeat that and go through the offer process, that could be, you could be looking at a couple months before you're into a house. And then going through the process typically takes how long, Kerri?
From start to finish, from the time we get contract until we close, we fit it within a 30-day period of time. If we can close sooner, we definitely will. But 30 days is the general rule of thumb for closing a loan from start to finish. But that's just the loan. Like you said, that's my portion of things. You're doing a lot of work beforehand, and it really depends on how quickly you can find that forever home or, for the right now home, the one that's going to fit your needs and your budget.
Yep, absolutely. And then again, if you have a cash, for instance, if you're coming with a cash offer, that can lessen that time up a whole bunch. It's not going to get time of not touring homes and stuff like that. But it might, you don't have the appraisal process, and you can actually usually close a little bit quicker. So, it's a variable. It just kind of depends on each different person's unique circumstances and kind of how the contract goes. But at least you have it, and that's what it is, right?
Right. And just to put in there, you have to have at least 5 days from start to finish of the process, just because of the legal disclosures that are handed out. And there are some waiting periods, like the right of rescission time period. So you definitely have to know that it can't just close overnight. There's going to be at least a 5-day minimum.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, you guys, that's all I have for you. Kerri, do you have anything else to add before we close out today?
I don't. I think this was, pretty informative, but it kept it short and sweet and to the point.
Perfect. I hope it's helpful today. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and follow button, and we will see you next week at the same time and same place. Have a great week, everyone.